until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of doing something different, we won't change. This is a question I ask myself often: is the solutions are all here, right? There's so many different modalities we have for resolving and working through trauma. There's so many different ways we have alternative approaches to overcoming substance abuse, dealing with old sexual abuse traumas. I mean, you name it, right? We've got effective solutions for it that are more than just the band-aid solutions you referenced before, like over medicating people and causing them just to numb out the symptoms. But I think maybe it goes back to that concept of secondary gain, that there is a it's more motivating to just stay in the problem than it is to come out of it. I always believe that until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of doing something different, we won't change, right? It's because even though it might hurt to hold on to that stuff for so long, and being mired in substance abuse can be really painful, until that becomes more painful than the thing you're afraid of facing off with, or what you must do to move through it, there's no reason for you to do anything different. And I think that's why we continue to see such staggering statistics when it comes to male suicide and opioid dependency and you name it, right? Is because it's still not motivating enough for people to want to change. And honestly, I don't know what the solution is for that. I can only think of my own experience and the people I've seen come out the other side of it, that at some point, I don't believe it has to be a rock bottom, but there has to be some sort of experience where you say, enough is enough. I'm done with this. I don't want my life to be this way. And only I could decide that for myself. As badly as my parents wanted to see me find my way out of my situation, as bad as my friends and my loved ones wanted to see that, I had to make that decision for me. Nobody could want it more than me. And I think that's the painful reality, is that some people will never want it enough for themselves.
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's really tricky. Something came up for me when you were talking about this, and I think it hits also on a point you mentioned, or you asked me before about like what do kids need, or what do men need, or something like that. And I said a coach and a calling. And I think for a kid especially, it's love, and just some time and some attention. And as I move forward on to your point here now, what I've gotten from people who have done, let's say, opiates or heroin, is like it's like a warm blanket, a hug you've never had, being held by your mom, And I think the harsh reality for a lot of people around the world is they don't get the opportunity to have those base layer, that foundational love and attention that they need to thrive. And then they have no foundation from which to grow. And then however the coping mechanism, that they find, whether it's drugs or food or whatever, comes out, it's really tough to navigate that. But I think the people that do have success are the ones that have got a taste of that, got a taste of a real human connection. And I think, that's at least how I'm trying to navigate these things, as I've worked with a lot of people now that have experienced some serious trauma. One of the guys I served with in Afghanistan actually just a couple months back messaged me out of the blue. And, I hadn't heard from him in a long time. And I was like, hey man, what's going on? He said a lot. And this dude was in a rehab facility. He had overdosed on opiates 5 days before. He said he was dead. The paramedics brought him back. And he reached out to me because he thought I could help him. He just had this, well, he said he had PTSD, and we got into that a bit. And he had this sort of survivor's guilt, this helplessness from seeing guys die in front of him. And then when he got back, and there was some sort of childhood trauma that was sort of even festering beneath that. So we cleared up the PTSD, and it's like, you can't think about anything else when you're in this sort of fight or flight response, when you're reliving these negative emotions and you have no emotional intelligence to navigate them. It consumes you. And so, I mean, just the way I've shifted my life, instead of just being like, why don't you just like unfuck yourself and fix yourself, like giving a little bit of love, giving a little bit of compassion, because a lot of these people have never experienced that. And they use these drugs, these other coping mechanisms to cope with that fact.
Yeah, I agree. I've learned that over the years too, specifically with men. There's a time and a place for some of that, people call it tough love, for lack of a better term, right? Where it's important to draw a line and say, hey, are you going to make a stand for yourself? Because I'm tired of being the one to stand for you more than you're willing to stand for yourself. I think that's appropriate under certain circumstances where there's trust already built up, and it's not seen as I'm abandoned. Here's not someone else who's going to abandon you, but I believe in you enough that you could stand on your own 2 feet now. But yeah, just a little more love and compassion.